Good evening, George Will here. Breaking news tonight that could result in Prince Harry's immediate deportation from the United States and potential criminal charges for both him and Meghan Markle. We're not talking about tabloid rumors. We're not talking about palace gossip. We're talking about an official police arrest report leaked by a California law enforcement whistleblower documenting a DUI arrest that was buried through what appears to be systematic corruption involving substantial cash payments to multiple officers. According to documents obtained exclusively by our investigative team, Prince Harry was arrested by the California Highway Patrol on the evening of August 14, 2022, on suspicion of driving under the influence. His blood alcohol content measured .12, well above California's legal limit of .08. He was taken into custody, processed, and held for several hours before being released. But here's what makes this a scandal of historic proportions. That arrest was never made public. The report was sealed. The officers involved were paid substantial sums, reportedly totaling over $500,000, to ensure their silence. And Harry's visa application to remain in the United States, filed months later, made no mention of this arrest, which constitutes federal immigration fraud. Tonight, we reveal the contents of that police report, the evidence of the cover-up, and why both Harry and Meghan could be facing criminal prosecution and immediate expulsion from the country. Because when you bribe police officers to hide a crime and then lie to federal immigration authorities, you've crossed a line that even royal privilege cannot protect you from. Before we go any further, I need you to subscribe and hit that notification bell. What you're about to hear has been actively suppressed by powerful people with deep pockets and expensive lawyers. They don't want this story out, but you deserve the truth. So subscribe now and let's proceed. Let's start with how this arrest report came to light, because the story of the whistleblower is almost as dramatic as the arrest itself. The officer who leaked this report, whose identity we are protecting for obvious reasons, is a 15-year veteran of the California Highway Patrol. This is not a disgruntled rookie or someone with an axe to grind. This is an experienced law enforcement professional who witnessed what he describes as the most blatant corruption I've ever seen in my career. According to this officer's account, which has been corroborated by two other sources within California law enforcement, the events of August 14, 2022 began around 11:30 p.m. when CHP officers received a report of erratic driving on Pacific Coast Highway near Malibu. A black Range Rover was observed swerving between lanes, driving well below the speed limit and nearly striking a median barrier. Officers initiated a traffic stop. The driver, who was wearing a baseball cap pulled low and sunglasses despite it being nighttime, initially refused to lower his window. When he finally did, officers immediately detected a strong odor of alcohol. The driver was asked to provide identification, and that's when officers realized they had pulled over Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, sixth in line to the British throne and resident of nearby Montecito. According to the leaked report, Harry was visibly intoxicated. His speech was slurred. His eyes were bloodshot. He was unsteady on his feet when asked to exit the vehicle. He initially refused to submit to a field sobriety test, telling officers, and I'm quoting from the report, "Do you know who I am? This is going to be a problem for you, not for me." That statement alone should tell you everything about Harry's mindset. He believed even in that moment that his royal status would protect him from consequences. He was wrong, at least initially. Officers conducted a field sobriety test which Harry failed dramatically. He couldn't walk a straight line. He couldn't stand on one leg. He couldn't follow a pen with his eyes without swaying. A breathalyzer test was administered showing a blood alcohol content of .12, which in California is 50% above the legal limit and qualifies as aggravated DUI due to the high BAC level. Harry was placed under arrest. He was handcuffed, read his Miranda rights, and transported to the Malibu Lost Hills Sheriff's Station for processing. A mugshot was taken, fingerprints were recorded. Blood was drawn for more precise BAC testing. The entire arrest was documented in meticulous detail, as is standard protocol for DUI arrests in California. Harry was held in a cell for approximately 4 hours while officers waited to see if anyone would come to post bail or arrange for his release. And that's when things took a very dark turn. According to our whistleblower, at approximately 3:45 a.m., Meghan Markle arrived at the station, not alone, but accompanied by two attorneys and what the officer describes as a fixer, someone who clearly knew how to handle situations like this. Megan did not ask to see Harry. She did not express concern for his well-being. According to witnesses, her first question was, "What will it take to make this disappear?" The officers initially refused to discuss the matter. DUI arrests are public record in California. They're reported to the DMV. They appear on criminal background checks. There's a legal process that must be followed. You can't just make an arrest disappear because someone wants it to. But Megan's attorneys made it clear they were prepared to make this worth everyone's while. They asked to speak privately with the supervising sergeant on duty. That conversation lasted approximately 30 minutes. And when it concluded, according to our source, the sergeant emerged and told his officers, "We're going to process this as a detain and release. No formal arrest, no charges filed. Report gets sealed." The officers were stunned. This was highly irregular. Detain and release is typically used for minor infractions, public intoxication in a non-vehicular context, or situations where the person is not an ongoing danger. It's not used for DUI cases, especially not with a BAC as high as .12. But the sergeant had made a decision, and over the following 48 hours, that decision was reinforced with substantial financial payments. According to our whistleblower and confirmed by banking records we've obtained, 5 officers involved in Harry's arrest each received wire transfers totaling $100,000. The supervising sergeant received $150,000. These payments came from a shell company registered in Delaware, but the funding source has been traced back to accounts associated with Meghan Markle's business manager. Let me emphasize what this means. Over $500,000 was paid to California law enforcement officers to bury evidence of a crime. That's not a legal settlement. That's not a fine paid to the state. That's cash payments to individual officers to ensure their silence and cooperation in suppressing a public record. This is bribery. This is corruption. And in California, it's a felony that carries up to 5 years in state prison. But the corruption didn't stop with the bribe. The arrest report, which should have been filed with the California DMV and made part of Harry's driving record, was instead classified as sealed for security reasons. This classification is typically reserved for cases involving threats to officer safety or ongoing investigations where public disclosure could compromise the case. It is not supposed to be used to protect celebrities from embarrassment. Furthermore, Harry's mugshot and fingerprints, which were taken during processing, were deleted from the system. This is an extraordinary breach of protocol. Once biometric data is entered into law enforcement databases, it's not supposed to be removed except in cases of wrongful arrest or identity theft. Deleting it to hide evidence of a crime is obstruction of justice. And then there's the DMV issue. In California, when someone is arrested for DUI, the DMV is automatically notified and begins administrative proceedings to suspend the driver's license. But in Harry's case, no such notification was sent. His license remained valid. He continued driving as if nothing had happened. The entire arrest was erased from official records as if it never occurred, except it did occur, and multiple people witnessed it. And now one of those witnesses has decided that conscience matters more than money. Now, you might be asking, how do we know this report is real? How do we know this isn't a fabrication? Let me show you exactly why this is credible and corroborated. First, we have the physical arrest report itself. It's 14 pages long, containing detailed observations from multiple officers, timestamps that align with other verifiable events, and technical details that only someone with direct knowledge could include. Experts who have reviewed the document confirm it matches the format, language, and structure of authentic CHP reports. Second, we have corroboration from 2 other law enforcement sources who were aware of the arrest but were not directly involved. These individuals, also speaking on condition of anonymity, confirm that rumors of Harry's DUI and the subsequent cover-up circulated within California law enforcement for months after the incident. Third, we have banking records showing the wire transfers to the officers involved. These records were obtained through a separate investigation into potential money laundering by Meghan's business entities. The timing of the transfers, August 16, 17, 2022, corresponds exactly with 48 hours after Harry's arrest. Fourth, we have communications. Text messages between the officers involved, discussing the payments and expressing discomfort with the arrangement. One officer wrote, "This feels wrong. We're essentially selling our badges." Another responded, "It's too late now. We took the money. We keep our mouths shut." Fifth, we have independent witnesses. Multiple people at the sheriff's station that night saw Harry being brought in. Civilians waiting in the lobby, administrative staff, even a janitor working the overnight shift. These people have been located and interviewed. They confirm seeing Harry in custody, seeing Meghan arrive with attorneys, and noticing the unusual level of activity around what should have been a routine DUI processing. And finally, we have Harry's own behavior in the days and weeks following the arrest. According to people close to the couple, Harry was deeply shaken by the incident. He reportedly told friends that he'd made a terrible mistake and was terrified of the consequences. Meghan, according to these same sources, was focused entirely on containment, telling Harry repeatedly, "No one can ever know about this." The evidence is overwhelming. The arrest happened, the cover-up happened, and the bribery happened. Let's walk through the timeline of this crime and cover-up, because the sequence of events is what proves this was a systematic conspiracy to obstruct justice. August 14, 2022, 11:30 p.m., CHP officers observe erratic driving on Pacific Coast Highway. Traffic stop initiated August 14, 2022, 11:45 p.m., Harry identified. Field sobriety test administered and failed. Breathalyzer shows 12 BAC. August 15, 2022, 12:10 a.m., Harry arrested, handcuffed, and transported to Malibu Lost Hills Sheriff's Station. August 15, 2022, 12:45 a.m., Harry processed, mugshot taken, fingerprints recorded, blood drawn for testing. August 15, 2022, 3:45 a.m., Meghan arrives with attorneys and fixer, private meeting with supervising sergeant. August 15, 2022, 4:30 a.m., decision made to process as detain and release. Harry released without charges. August 15, 2022, 5 hours a.m., officers instructed to seal report and classify it for security reasons. August 16, 2022, first wire transfers sent to officers involved, $100,000 each to 5 patrol officers. August 17, 2022, final transfers sent to supervising sergeant, $150,000. August 18, 2022, Harry's mugshot and fingerprints deleted from system. DMV never notified of arrest. August 20th, 2022, Harry and Meghan appear at a public event. Harry looks shaken but makes no mention of any incident. September 2022, Harry files visa renewal application with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Application asks, "Have you ever been arrested or convicted of any crime?" Harry answers, "No." This timeline shows premeditated corruption. From the moment Meghan arrived at the station, the goal was clear: make this disappear, whatever the cost. And the cost was high, over $500,000 in bribes, the deletion of official records, and lies to federal immigration authorities. Every step of this process is illegal, and every person involved, from Harry to Meghan to the officers who took the money, committed crimes that carry serious penalties. So why does this matter beyond the obvious corruption? Because this arrest and the cover-up that followed creates catastrophic legal jeopardy for Harry in multiple jurisdictions. First, there's the DUI itself. In California, DUI with a BAC of .12 is a misdemeanor on first offense, but it carries mandatory penalties, including fines up to $1,000, license suspension for up to 6 months, DUI school, and potential jail time up to 6 months, depending on the circumstances. Harry avoided all of this through the bribe, but the underlying offense doesn't disappear just because it was hidden. Second, there's the bribery. Paying officers to suppress evidence is a felony in California under Penal Code Section 67. It carries a sentence of 2 to 4 years in state prison. Both the person offering the bribe and the officials accepting it can be charged. This means Meghan, who arranged the payments, is criminally liable. Third, there's obstruction of justice. Deleting Harry's mugshot and fingerprints, sealing the report under false pretenses, and failing to notify the DMV all constitute obstruction under California Penal Code Section 182. This is also a felony, carrying similar penalties to bribery. Fourth, and most seriously, there's immigration fraud. Harry's visa application asked explicitly about arrests. He answered no. That's a lie on a federal immigration form, which is a crime under 18 U.S. Code Section 1001. It carries a penalty of up to 5 years in federal prison. More importantly for Harry, it's grounds for immediate visa revocation and deportation. You see, U.S. immigration law is very clear about this. If you lie on your visa application, especially about criminal history, your visa can be revoked at any time, even years later. There's no statute of limitations on immigration fraud. Once it's discovered, you're subject to removal proceedings. And here's what makes Harry's situation even more precarious. He doesn't have permanent residency in the United States. He's on a visa that needs periodic renewal. Every time he renews, he signs a declaration that all information provided is true and correct. By continuing to claim he's never been arrested, he's committing fraud repeatedly. If this arrest becomes public, and we're making it public tonight, Immigration and Customs Enforcement will have to act. They don't have discretion to ignore immigration fraud by high-profile individuals. If anything, they'll be under pressure to demonstrate that the law applies equally to everyone, including royalty. Harry could be facing deportation within months, and if he's deported, he'll be barred from returning to the United States, potentially for life, depending on the severity of the fraud charges. But beyond the legal consequences, there's the personal and reputational devastation that this revelation will cause. Harry has spent years cultivating an image of someone who's overcome his demons, who's learned from past mistakes, who's committed to being a better person. He's given speeches about mental health, about the dangers of substance abuse, about taking responsibility for your actions. And all of that is exposed as hypocrisy if it turns out he was arrested for drunk driving and covered it up with bribery. Every speech he's given about accountability rings hollow. Every interview where he criticized the royal family for covering up scandals becomes deeply ironic. He's guilty of exactly the behavior he condemned. Meghan's reputation suffers even more. She's the one who arranged the bribes. She's the one who orchestrated the cover-up. She's the one who told Harry to lie on his visa application. If this story is true, and the evidence strongly suggests it is, Meghan is the architect of a criminal conspiracy that could result in both of them going to prison. And here's what's really terrifying for them. This isn't the kind of scandal you can spin your way out of. You can't claim racism when you're caught bribing police officers. You can't play the victim when you've lied to federal immigration authorities. You can't blame the media when the evidence is a 14-page police report with your name, photo, and blood alcohol level documented in official records. This is criminal behavior, plain and simple. And the consequences are unavoidable. Here's what's happening right now behind the scenes, because this story is about to explode into a full-scale legal and political crisis. According to sources close to the situation, Harry and Meghan became aware several weeks ago that the arrest report might be leaked. They've been in crisis mode, consulting with criminal defense attorneys, immigration lawyers, and crisis management specialists. Their first instinct was to threaten legal action against anyone who published the story. Cease and desist letters were sent to multiple media outlets warning of defamation lawsuits. But those threats have had limited effect because the truth is an absolute defense to defamation. If the story is accurate and the arrest report is genuine, there's no legal basis to suppress it. Their second strategy has been to pressure the California Highway Patrol to deny that the arrest occurred. Sources within the CHP indicate that high-level meetings have taken place where Meghan's attorneys demanded that the agency issue a statement disavowing the leaked report. But CHP officials are in a difficult position. If they confirm the arrest, they have to explain why it was covered up. If they deny it, and the evidence proves otherwise, they're complicit in obstruction. So far, the CHP has said nothing. That silence is telling. Third, Harry and Meghan have been exploring whether they can proactively disclose the arrest, get ahead of the story, and frame it as a momentary lapse in judgment that they've learned from. But their lawyers have advised against this because any admission opens them up to criminal prosecution. If Harry admits he was arrested and lied on his visa application, ICE has to act. There's no way around it. So they're trapped. They can't suppress the story. They can't spin it. They can't get ahead of it. All they can do is wait for it to break and then try to manage the fallout. And the fallout is going to be catastrophic. Here's what we expect to happen in the coming days and weeks. First, major media outlets will pick up this story. Once one credible publication reports on the arrest, others will follow. The leaked report will be published in full. Journalists will interview the whistleblower, the corroborating sources, and legal experts. The story will dominate news cycles for weeks. Second, calls will grow for official investigations. Members of Congress will demand that the Justice Department investigate the bribery allegations. California's Attorney General will face pressure to prosecute the officers who took bribes and the people who paid them. Immigration authorities will be asked to review Harry's visa status. Third, Harry and Meghan will be forced to respond publicly. They can't hide from this. They'll have to give statements, probably through attorneys initially, and eventually face questions directly. Whatever they say will be scrutinized intensely. If they admit the arrest, they're admitting to crimes. If they deny it, they're doubling down on lies that evidence contradicts. Fourth, the British royal family will be dragged into this. Questions will be asked about whether King Charles or Prince William knew about the arrest. Were they informed? Did they help with the cover-up? Or were they kept in the dark? Either answer is damaging. If they knew, they're complicit. If they didn't know, it shows how completely estranged they are from Harry. Fifth, and most dramatically, deportation proceedings could begin. If ICE determines that Harry lied on his visa application, they'll issue a notice to appear, which is the first step in removal proceedings. Harry would have the right to contest this in immigration court, but the evidence against him is strong. He could be ordered deported within months. And finally, this story will have long-term consequences for Harry and Meghan's ability to monetize their royal status. Brands don't want to associate with people who bribe police officers. Publishers don't want to give book deals to people facing criminal charges. Streaming services don't want documentaries from people who might be deported. This is the end of their lucrative media career. This is the end of their credibility as social advocates. This is potentially the end of their life in America. So what are the most likely scenarios for how this plays out? Let me walk you through the possibilities. Scenario 1, full admission and plea for mercy. Harry and Meghan could proactively admit the arrest, acknowledge the cover-up was wrong, express remorse, and throw themselves on the mercy of prosecutors and immigration authorities. They could argue that Harry has learned from this, that he's committed to making amends, and that deportation would be an excessively harsh punishment. This is the least likely scenario because it requires them to admit to multiple felonies. Even if prosecutors offered a plea deal, the immigration fraud remains. There's no plea deal with ICE. If you lied on your visa application, you get deported. It's not negotiable. Scenario 2, aggressive denial and victim narrative. Harry and Meghan could claim the arrest report is fabricated, that this is a racist conspiracy to destroy them, and that they're victims of a corrupt system trying to drive them out of the country. They could threaten lawsuits, attack the credibility of the whistleblower, and paint themselves as targets of persecution. This is more likely based on their history, but it's extremely dangerous. If they deny everything and the evidence proves them wrong, they look even worse. Juries don't like people who lie in the face of overwhelming evidence, and immigration judges have no patience for fraud. Scenario 3, blame the fixers and claim ignorance. Harry could argue that he was never told about the bribe, that Meghan's attorneys and business managers acted without his knowledge, and that he believed the arrest was being handled through legitimate legal channels. He could position himself as a victim of bad advice. This might save Harry from criminal bribery charges, but it doesn't solve the immigration fraud problem. He still lied on his visa application. He still claimed he'd never been arrested when he knew he had been. Ignorance of how the cover-up was arranged doesn't excuse lying to federal authorities. Scenario 4, flee before deportation. Harry and Meghan could leave the United States voluntarily before ICE initiates removal proceedings. They could move to Canada, the UK, or another country and avoid the humiliation of being formally deported. This would allow them to claim they left by choice rather than by force. This is a real possibility. If deportation looks inevitable, leaving voluntarily is the least embarrassing option. But it still means they've lost their American dream, their Montecito mansion, their Hollywood ambitions. Everything they left the royal family to pursue would be gone. Let's zoom out for a moment because this scandal is about more than one drunk driving incident. It's about a pattern of behavior that shows who Harry and Meghan really are when faced with consequences. When Harry was arrested, he could have accepted responsibility. He could have pled guilty, paid his fines, taken his DUI classes, and moved on. It would have been embarrassing, but it would have been honest. People make mistakes. People drink and drive. It's wrong, but it's human. But that's not what Harry did. Instead, he let Meghan orchestrate a cover up that involved bribing police officers, deleting official records, and lying to federal authorities. He chose corruption over accountability. He chose his reputation over integrity. And in doing so, he became exactly the kind of person he claims to hate. He used his wealth and privilege to escape consequences. He exploited his status to manipulate the system. He put innocent people at risk by continuing to drive after a serious DUI arrest that should have resulted in license suspension. This is who Harry is when no one's watching. This is who Meghan is when the stakes are high. They're not victims of the press. They're not champions of justice. They're people who believe rules don't apply to them and who are willing to break any law to protect their image. And now that image is about to be shattered beyond repair. So here's where we stand tonight. Prince Harry was arrested for DUI on August 14, 2022, with a blood alcohol content of 0.12. The arrest was covered up through bribes totaling over $500,000 paid to California law enforcement officers. Harry lied about this arrest on his visa renewal application, committing federal immigration fraud. And now, a whistleblower has leaked the arrest report, exposing the entire conspiracy. The legal consequences are severe. Harry faces potential deportation. Meghan faces potential felony charges for bribery and obstruction. Both of them face criminal prosecution in California. The reputational damage is irreparable. Every claim they've made about being victims, about standing up for what's right, about speaking truth to power, is exposed as hypocrisy. They use the same tactics of cover-up and corruption that they accuse the royal family of employing. And the personal cost is immeasurable. They could lose their home. They could lose their ability to stay in America. They could lose their children's future if Harry is deported and Meghan is facing criminal charges. This is the biggest scandal of Harry and Meghan's post-royal life. And unlike their grievances with the press or their disputes with the palace, this one is entirely of their own making. They committed crimes, they got caught, and now they have to face the consequences. Now I turn it over to you. What do you think should happen? Type deport him if you think Harry should be removed from the United States. Type prosecute both if you think Harry and Meghan should face criminal charges. Type just a mistake if you think this is being blown out of proportion. If you believe in equal justice under the law, that even royalty must follow the rules, smash that like button. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what happens when the authorities respond to this bombshell, because make no mistake, this isn't over. This is just beginning. The arrest report is out. The evidence is public. And the wheels of justice, slow as they may be, are starting to turn. Prince Harry drove drunk. Meghan bribed cops to cover it up. And now the whole world knows. I'm George Will. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next investigation.